Hello and assalamu alaikum to all of you. This is Sayyid Sadli, Vice President of Operations at MedAngle. Today, we'll be starting the MedAngle live series called It's a Match, which is a deep dive into Match 2024. And joining me as the host for today's episode is Dr. Mohammad Azib. Dr. Mohammad Azib, would you want to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, Saad. Thank you so much. My name is Dr. Mohammad Azib. Welcome to all our audience who's tuning in. I serve as founder, CEO, and CTO at MedAngle. And I think for those who don't know, MedAngle is all about revolutionizing medical education in Pakistan, Asia, Middle East, and Africa, and one day the entire world. So whether you're a pre-med student, medical, dental, whether you want to take USMLEs, PLAB, whatever your aspirations in life are to become a good, competent, and ethical doctor, MedAngle's technologies are there for you from pre-med to all the way till graduation and beyond, and one day even until you retire as well. And today's session, I can't wait to get started. Let's get into it. Let's talk about It's a Match. And then first, I'm going to pass over to Dr. Tayyab Muzaffar to introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tayyab. I just recently matched into neurology at University of South Florida. I'm from Islamabad, but I did my medical school at Quaid-e-Azam Medical College in Bahawalpur. After my house job, I thought like, what do I do in life now? And I was like, okay, USMLE seems like a good option. But it was a lot of blood, sweat, tears, crying, stress, anxiety, and a lot of other superlatives and adjectives. But in the end, like when you open the email, it's worth it. And I'm still, it's surreal, so I'm still in shock, but I'm happy to be here.
All right, great. Abdullah, would you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, please?
Sure. It's nice to see you, everyone. My name is Mohammad Abdullah. I'm basically from Faisalabad, the lighter town, the Manchester of Pakistan. And I've studied my medical school from Rawalpindi from a university called Rifa International University, Islamic International Medical College. I graduated in March of Feb 2023, to be exact. And as far as the whole USMLE, the graduate medical education pathway to the US is concerned, this journey started when I was in third year. And there was a lot of familial motivation. It was a lot of motivation from my family to pursue this pathway because there were some distant relatives who had pursued this pathway, and they were very adamant about how fruitful it is. And when I studied it about by myself, it really seemed to be something that's really important, something that I should take a shot at. And that's how it turned out to be. And and one of the special things that I really want to mention about my journey throughout the last 3 years is a journey of firsts, if I must say, because I'm the first one from my batch to pursue this pathway, and it was a bit lonely. I mean, bit is a very light word. It was very lonely over the course of the past 3 years. But Alhamdulillah, with the help of God and with a bit of determination and familiar support, I'm right here with you, and I matched it to internal medicine residency program at Kahneman Memorial Medical Center in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here, and it's a great opportunity to be able to help a lot of peers who did not seek a lot of guidance early on, and to be in that position, it really is surreal. Thank you very much.
Great stuff, guys. All right. Thank you so much, Tayyab and Abdullah, once again for being here with us today. I'm certain that the audience is going to gain a lot of insight from your journeys, right? So today's episode, we'll be talking about some of the basics of the match. We'll be kind of talking about the pre-match season, what people should be doing before match 2025 starts, the things that they should have in hand. And we're going to be covering a bit of the ERAS application and the main match cycle itself, right? So before we begin, so let's dive right first into the pre-match season. For example, let's say I am a match 2025 applicant, right? At this moment in time, now match 2025 hasn't started yet, but match 2024 is over. Technically, the main match cycle is over, the slope is over, the scramble is going on, but we're not going to get into that, obviously, right? So, as a match 2025 applicant, what things should I be doing right now as of this moment, right? So, Tayyab, how about you take this over?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, it's a very good question. And when I look back at my time, this time last year, I was actually preparing for my step 2 exam, which I gave in May. So my match season was rushed a little bit because I gave my step 2, gave my OET, and then I had to go for my rotation. So everything was last minute. Like I submitted my ERAS application at 8:58 a.m. So that's how close it was. My letters were uploaded really late. So I guess that's one unique thing about my application as well. Everything was so rushed. Uh, but absolutely right. So if I change anything, I would say like I would pull basically my step two exam at this time, February, March, give it here, so that so you have ample time for rotations, right? Again, you should start. People think about ERAS CV, oh, we have to submit it in September. You start working on it now. The personal statement I started writing in March looked nothing like the one I submitted. Even one day before, there were changes. Like I showed it to people, and they made substantial changes to it, and have to make changes. But it's an iteration. It's not one thing. Okay, you just write in one day, right? You have to start thinking about it now. So absolutely, get done with your exam as soon as possible. Get the visa if you haven't already, and spend May, June, July in US making connections, doing clinical rotations if you haven't done so already, and work on your ERAS, man. That's non-negotiable.
All right, amazing. Thank you so much, Tayyab. Okay, so next question is for you, Abdullah. Now, let's talk a bit about the ECFMG certification. I understand that there are multiple pathways, six, if I'm not mistaken, right? So let's talk
Correct,
a bit about
correct.
that. Like, what's the ideal time to get ECFMG certified? And if you could comment a bit on what pathways there are, so that all the audience here, regardless of where they are in their journey as medical students or doctors right now, they all can, relate to it and, learn something from that.
Sure. Thank you very much for the question, Asad. It's a very important one because these pathways were introduced about 3 years ago when COVID, got us the escape of the world, and we were introduced to this new horizon of how the ERAS application and the whole process is going to take place. The six pathways, their motive is to ensure that an applicant's clinical competency is not compromised. Because during COVID, the step two CS exam was canceled. It was one of those examinations which used to provide the clinical competency and a declaration of someone who is clinically competent to pursue their graduate medical education in the US. With CS gone, ECFMG created these six pathways for individuals who are in different circumstances and in different phases of their medical career. So it was a very flexible move by ECFMG at that particular point in time. As far as I know of the pathways in detail, the first two is the pathway one and pathway two. These two pathways are the ones which I think most medical graduates from Pakistan have gone into. And to be more precise, pathway one is the one that has that most Pakistani medical graduates have got into. What pathway one entails, what it basically means that you are an individual who has graduated from medical school, who has done from medical school, and who has done their internship year, which is particularly called house job in Pakistan. Once you're done with these two big steps, your medical school and your internship, now you're eligible to take the OET examination. Once you take the OET examination, you have completed the English language component or the speaking component of the CS. With these three things done and your house job certificate in your hand, you can apply. You are only eligible to actually apply via pathway one. And it's a very seamless and easy step. ECFMG has created certain portals, a specific portal for pathways, and you go ahead, you submit your OET, you submit your OET scores via your OET portal, you submit your medical degree and your house job certificate, and that's how it goes. And once you submit these documents, you pay the fee of $925, which is going to dent you $925. Then over the course of the next week or two, they're very fast particularly during these months of from let's say Feb to July. They're very fast and they're very cooperative when it comes to verifying those pathways. Once the pathways are verified, then it's downhill from there. ECFMG sends you your ECFMG certificate by mail and puts you electronically as verified ECFMG certification status on your ERAS application. That's pathway one. Now, pathway two is something that I pursued because I didn't do my house job when I had and applied because I graduated in Feb 2023 and then applied in September 2023. Now, for someone who has not done house job, it's not hard at all. It's the same thing. It's just that your medical school has to be eligible to pursue pathway two. And when I searched about it, every medical school in Pakistan, as far as my humble knowledge is concerned, is eligible for pathway two. What that means is Pathway 2 entails that your medical school should be conducting an OSCE-based exam as far as your final year professional examination is concerned to consider you a medical graduate. And every medical school in Pakistan does that. And that's how ECFMG made sure that, Pathway 2 can be applied to these medical schools. So once that is done, you have your medical degree in your hand. Once you have your medical degree in your hand, you can upload that on the same portal that I talked about a few minutes earlier. And your OET scores should be validated from the OET portal. And then it's the same process, just like Pathway 1. So these two pathways are the ones that I'm familiar with, and the ones that I've seen people use as far as Pathway 1 is concerned, and as far as Pathway 2 is concerned, the one that I used. And as far as the timeline is concerned, like you mentioned, you need to be very proactive during this phase of the cycle. Of course, the Match 2025 cycle has not officially begun, but your documentation should be in order as soon as they release the ERAS token. And I think around May they will release the ECFMG certification for 2025 match. Your documents should be in order, your OET should be in order, your step 2 should be in order, and your degree should be in your hand. Once you have these three things in your hand, you're good to go, and your pathway will be at the very max. It should be done within the course of 3 weeks.
All right, that's an amazing description. Thank you so much, Abdullah. And I myself got certified from Pathway 2, so I'm the same boat as you. And just to summarize it for our audience here right now, right? So you do need your USMD
Sure.
step 1, you need your USMD step 2, and you need your OET in terms of examinations in order to apply for any pathway at all, right? And at the bare minimum, you need your medical school degree or diploma or some documentation proving that, okay, this person has completed their OSCE for Pathway 2. And for Pathway 1, like Abdullah mentioned, you have to have done your house job, which I believe Pathway 1 was what Tayyab used probably to get certified, right, Tayyab?
Yeah, I wanted to add just one
Yeah.
sentence that a lot of people ask me, do you have to renew the ECFMD certificate? But I just got the email a few weeks ago that they have extended my certificate up until 2026. So I don't know, it's only for Pathway 1 for all the pathways, but usually they push it back. So you don't have to pay that 925 most probably again. So
yeah,
yep.
I feel
Thank
like
God.
yeah, I'm going to comment on this as well, right? So I got certified last year as well, and I got that email as well, and I'm Pathway 2. So I don't have to get certified until 2026 anymore either. And I feel like we've been doing this for the past 2-3 years now. Just keep pushing it back, which is good for us. We don't have to spend money on it again, for example, because I didn't apply to the last cycle, but I'm applying this cycle. So it's good for me. I don't have to spend that money again, right? So that's a good point there, Tayyab. All right. So let's move on from pre-match and get into the match, specifically match 2025 now, right? So let's lay the land out here a bit. There's a word everyone always uses, or multiple words. There's ERAS, there's NRMP, but for most people who are currently on the pathway, I feel like they won't really understand what these words mean, right? So Tayyab, how about you lay the line out here? कि मतलब क्या इन चीजों का exactly, right?
Yeah, let's yeah, I was confused by these things too. Like I said, my application rushed, so I didn't know what ERAS was until a very late. But ERAS is basically electronic residency application software. So it's basically a portal where you fill in your CV, right? Fill in your everything you know about it, and using that portal, you send that CV to different programs where you want to apply to. And it also includes your letters of recommendation, your personal statement, your transcripts from. So it's just one whole package. It's basically a place to make a package to send the programs, and then they charge you heavily for it. That's a different discussion, but that's what ERAS is. And NRMP is basically so a funny story. There was a Nobel Prize in maths that was given out for the NRMP software because it's such a beautiful algorithm in which you can match people, right? And so basically, it's just an algorithm which favors the applicant.
It's not beautiful. It's very scary.
Program.
It's very scary to you.
Yeah, just as like a fun thing. Like when I was Alhamdulillah had enough interviews. I knew like if I did my things right, I would match. But I was worried about how will the programs find me? What if the NRMP number on my ERAS is wrong? What if the programs are not able to search me? What if I put in the wrong? So I was like I was so neurotic and I had OCD and I was like, oh my God, double check, triple check. And then I was still scared that I made a blunder and then it's going to say, sorry, you did not match. But thankfully none of that happened. But this is what ERAS and NRP are basically.
All right, perfect. So that's a good definition, good place to get started there, right? Abdullah, I believe you have your ERAS software open right now. How about you?
Sure. Yeah.
Let's give everyone an overview of what the dashboard there
Sure.
looks like, so that when they go for Match
Sure.
25, there's nothing of surprise.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'll walk you through the screen. This is basically your sign-in dashboard. When you make your AAMC ERS account, you sign in, and this is the dashboard that you get. This dashboard is very self-explanatory. It's not scary at all. It does scary things towards the end of the season to you. I mean that's how neurotic you get when you submit your rank list, like that you mentioned. But it's very easy to understand, and I hope I can do justice to it. So what you see over here and on the front page is on the top right, you see your AMC ID, your email address, that the correspondent that the application that the programs are going to use for correspondence. And this particular AMC ID is the mode of communication with the programs. This is how the program, if during the season or before the season or after the season, whatever, whenever you're having any conversation with the program, AMC ID is something that they're going to remember you by. Know that you're someone who's applied to their program, who's interested in their program. It's just like in addition to the USMLE or ECFMG ID that you get, when you first give your Step 1 exam. So it's in addition to that. What the four boxes that you see in front of you, as far as the first box is concerned, application, it gives you a summary of when you submitted your application. And this is very important. This has to be before the deadline that ERAS has communicated with you. Like in our case, this was 23rd September in the past cycle. And it every year or so it revolves around that cycle as well. Revolves around that date. It's the last week of September. So make sure you are familiar with that date and your application is submitted before it. But you can see even you can submit your application maybe a week before the deadline. It will always show that it's submitted on the last day, whatever the deadline is. Why? Because that's how the programs will know. The programs don't receive the applications in order of when you submit it. They receive all the applications at one single point in time, and that's the deadline, which was 23rd September. So it doesn't matter, who submits first, and if some people have this sort of anxiety going on in their head that if what if I submit my application closer to the deadline and my application is in the last segment of the pile? That's not how it works. If you submit it before the deadline, it's going to appear to the programs as it was submitted in that exact very second when the deadline was, when the deadline wasn't put in order. So you can relax from that end. Then you see a tab of personal information, your application. Then it asks you permission, if your application should be released to your medical school, you can just go ahead and click that yes. No rocket science there. The second part of this, the second and third box that you see are very important. The second box that you see is of documents. It shows you that the first tab is the very scary one. It shows you the documents that you've uploaded, but you've unassigned. This should be zero. This should always be zero. None of your documents should be unassigned. You know, at any point in time, if any one of your documents is unassigned and the deadline has been passed, that's a problem. Because then the programs are going to know that they don't have that much time to communicate with you. Where you have an LOR missing, or you have an MSPE missing, you have a transcript missing. Make sure, double check it before you submit your application that all your documents are signed. So that goes, that the same thing goes with personal statements as well. The third tab that you see is the USMLE request status. Now, this is the button that you click, and what happens is that your USMLE history is communicated to the program.
Tayyab, you can see on the screen a bit about the USMLE request status. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. He mentioned a lot of things. Like Saad was mentioning, the tab up front, that this is just a summary tab. The main tabs are up front, in which you get access to your whole application. And I would like to go over the parts of that application.
Yeah.
Firstly, you have your personal information, like everything from your med school, year of graduation, date of birth. And most importantly, they ask you your visa status and which visa you require, right? And now there's a debate like whether you should choose J1 and H1 or just J1, right? I chose J1, right? But I also got interviews from H1 programs. So that's like, it's up to you what you want, but you can choose J1 and H1 it doesn't really matter. You get interviews anyway.
Dr. Tayyab, sorry to disturb you here, but could you like briefly point out difference between J1 and H1B?
Yeah, so there are two different types of visas that residents usually pursue. First one is J1, which is the more common. Around 80 to 90% of the people choose a J1 visa. And it's a visa with a home country rule. It's a non-immigration intent visa in which you're actually allowed to work in the US on the condition that you come back to your home country for 2 years, right? But the way around that is either you can apply for a waiver, or usually people apply for a waiver, or you can do a hard area, whatever, like in an underserved area, and then you can then change to a H1B. Then still, it's not a green card. You still have to change into a H1B for the underserved area for 3 years, and then you can apply for a green card. Okay. So that's the J1. Also, the problem with J1 is that you have to come back every year for restamping. They changed the rule to have the same thing with H1 as well, but it's still more lenient. So H1, in contrast, is an immigration intent visa in which it's not. I should also mention that J1 is sponsored by ECFMG, but the H1 is sponsored by the hospital where you match into, and there's a lawyer, and it has a higher cost for the hospital, so that's why fewer H1 visas are offered. But the thing is that it's easier in the sense that you don't have to return home that often, and at the end of your 4 years, there you can start the process for a green card application. So that's why it's a more desirable visa. However, the catch is that it's harder to get into fellowships with H1. But if you ask for my personal opinion, I think that's still worth it because you can wait a year to get into a fellowship, and you have a green card, and then you have an edge on everyone who's doing a fellowship on a J1 visa, right? So that's my personal opinion on it. People might disagree, but those are, like you asked, these are the basics of what the different visa types are.
Okay, so, and since we're already on this conversation, could you briefly comment on what makes you eligible for one and not for the other?
Yeah, I should have mentioned that already. So J1, you match, you're eligible. Okay, so you just need to be ECFMG certified, and there are specific scenarios like someone are on J1 research visas. They need to apply for like if they have a home country rule they need to apply for discretionary advice. So I'm not a lawyer, first of all.
Yeah.
So this is just my opinion. And secondly, like we can nitpick, but the crux of the matter is like if you have matched, you can apply for J1, but for H1 you need your step 3 examination, preferably by December, because most programs will ask you that before we make our rank order list, you tell us if you have passed step 3 or not, right? But I was applying in neurology, and all the programs I talked to, they said, okay, give it to us on match day. And I have it now. Like my result came on March 13th. Like I said, everything is so rushed in my application. Like everything is last. So yeah. So this is the requirements for J1.
All right, perfect. So that was a good segue into visas, which I feel like there's a lot of questions about that as well, right? But let's get back into the ERAS application itself, right? So I have a question for you, specifically, Dr. Tayyab, that let's talk about a bit about what should a PD know exactly about you after you're doing your application. Like how should you structure the application, structure your CV to essentially tell your story to that program director?
Right. I think that's a really, really good question. And the reason is that people, and like we did the same thing. Like we were now explaining the parts of an ERAS application. The moment you buy a token, you already know what the parts of the ERAS application are. You can Google it, right? So I think you did a good thing to divert our attention towards that. And people think personal statement should tell the program about you, but man, oh man, the ERAS CV matters a lot. Because think about a program, right? Especially internal medicine. I don't know how those guys did it. Like 5,000 applications to a single program. They have barely a minute to go over it. So you need to make their job easier. They open up your CV within a minute. They know who you are. Like they can easily understand what you did. All right, step score this. Okay, year of graduation this. Okay. They rotated here. All right, these publications. That's it. Right? That's all it is. Other than that, you can put a cherry on. If he's interested, he can read the meaningful experience and impactful experiences, right? Those are important too. But that's one thing. Easily digestible information should be presented to him in a professional manner. Number one. Number two, when he shuts that ERAS CV or flips the page or closes that window, he should know 3 things about you at least. All right, he can describe you, right? All right, for example, let's just take my example. Like I've always been passionate about extracurriculars, risen up to leadership roles in wherever I've worked. And that is shown through my ERAS CV, through my med school and my other extracurricular activities. So once he reads that, he's like, all right, this guy is number one. He likes to work in teams. He usually rides up to the leadership position in organizations, number one. Number two, they will read, okay, he's a sportsman, because I have done a lot of um like I was a captain of the basketball team and the squash team, and so these are like, it doesn't mean that it has to be a clinical experience. It has to be something that unique identifies you in his mind. Like he gets a feeling when he thinks about you, right? And the third thing could be my research. Like I published in high impact papers, and those were some and I did research in neurointervention, which is rare for people to do at a like graduate level. So that was something that was brought up in during my interviews as well. So these were the three things I think that the takeaways from my CV were, right? And that's what, when he discusses this with the APD, with the other committee, like, oh, do we offer him an interview? If he's thinking about it, it's like, who was that candidate again? Then I think you might be in trouble. But like, I would also mention there are filters. The most important thing is your step score. So you get year of graduation is important too. We can have a debate on 3 or 5 years. What's the year of graduation? I can talk about neurology in detail, what it takes to get matched in neurology. And just short answer is your dedication to neurology should show. And that's also showed in my CV. Like everything I did was neurology, neurology, neurology. So they were like, okay, this guy's fanatic about it, and we like that. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, then that was an amazing answer. I particularly like the fact about how you mentioned that they're getting 5,000-6,000 applications. How do you make yours stand out, right? I feel like this goes for any job in the world, right? When you send your CVs, वगैरह. But it goes even more here, because there's literally this one entire season that they're looking at applications, and you need to stand out. 6,000 applications, 10 spots. How the hell do you stand out? That was a very great answer. Thank you, Dr. Tayyab. All right. So now we covered that, and we understand that, okay. So in order to, have a chance, our CVs need to be according to what we're going for. They need to be telling our story, they need to be telling who we are, right? Let's get into the CV itself, right? So let's talk about the components of the application. Abdullah, are you here with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, all right, perfect. Can you comment a bit, very briefly, on all the components that there are in the actual ERAS CV? And if you want to, you can show your own CV as well, so that people can have a good idea. Okay, this is what the CV is at the end of the day.
Sure. I would love to talk, show you my ERAS CV and make it easier for the audience. But internet chooses today to be, messy with me, and I have to have 3 devices in front of me to make sure that everything stays on. So yeah,
Nice.
I'll just go ahead and tell you, make a picture of how it looks. The very first thing that how it goes is there's a segment of personal profile where you're going to have your name, your gender, and your AMC ID. That's the first thing.
Okay.
And then they're going to move on to your addresses. The addresses are going to be divided into your present mailing address and your permanent mailing address. They both can be same. Both of them can be same. And mailing address includes, where you live, your email as well, and also your phone numbers, whatever that you're going to use for correspondence with the program if the need arises. Then the very next thing is medical education, or any other education that you have had post high school. In Pakistani students' case, because we when we graduate from high school or from A level or from FSC, we get into medical school directly. There's no leeway between that. So that we leave that particular education section of post high school and before med school section blank, and that's not a problem. We just fill in the medical education block, where we went to med school and what are the dates and what is the degree called. Then the section comes of any professional societies that you have entered. If you're a member of American College of Cardiology or IFMSA or any honorary positions like American College of Physicians student member, whatever it is, you add that particular honorary membership that you have in that section.
I would just like to add something, like another question. I'm really sorry for doing this.
Sure.
Like when you talk about memberships and people ask me like, what membership did you have and how much do you have to pay for it? And I was like, why can't you be smart about it? Like there are so many societies. Just Google how many professional memberships or societies there are in the US, and the list is like 150, right? So like, for example, the Society of Experimental Neurotherapeutics, that's what I was a part of, right? And I just emailed them. I was like, I'm a medical doctor. I don't have any money. Can you give me a membership? I was like, sure, we'd love to. And then they were like, they gave me membership. They sent me their journal, and then they asked me to, like, I shared my work with them, and they asked me to present at their conference as like not as a poster, but as a podium presentation, which happened in Delaware. And it's like, you never know what's going to work out for you, so don't think like, okay, I need to spend money on it. Use your brain instead, and just think of ways to finesse the system.
That's
Absolutely. And this is absolutely right. A simple Google search can bring about these societies lists. And that's how I got American College of Cardiology's membership, a student membership when I was in medical school. And the email came up, you can go ahead and join in.
So while we wait for Abdullah to come back, so I want to talk to you a bit. I kind of want to get into the personal statement while we wait for Abdullah. So can you, for like a minute or two, talk about the personal statement, what you think about it, what matters. Let's kind of get into that really quickly in the meantime.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. That's a really good question. And like I mentioned earlier, you need to start now. And I also mentioned that my personal statement was edited in the last day. And it's a funny story because I was so happy with my personal statement. I like mountain climbing and hiking, so it was all about that, and I was very passionate about it, and I wrote all about it. And then I show it to someone, and then they said, "Dude, you sound too, like, I don't say if I can say it on YouTube or not, like, cocky, right?" So it's like, what are you trying to do? Like, you need to. So there are some subtleties about the American system. You need to sound humble, inspired, motivated, and it's like showing, not telling. That's the thing that you need to keep in mind, right? And you need to have a theme that's unique to you, right? And then I cannot tell you, okay, this is how you write your personal statement. What I can tell you is like, it should be less than one page, 600 words, the size 11 times New Roman, whatever that is. That's what it is. That's what everyone knows. But other than that, it is personal, man. And people, as Pakistanis, and I like that, people think why AMGs like have a number on us. And to be very honest, it's because our imposter syndrome is greater than theirs, right? We were like, oh, what do I have? What's unique about me, man? Like, I was like the run of the block guy who didn't do anything special in their life, right? But trust me, your story that you can tell from coming from Pakistan is going to blow their socks away. But if you can tell it in the right way. And another caveat is, don't write your personal statement and send it. Have it reviewed by people who know what they're talking about, right? And I'm so glad that the person who I was shouting at, that person, he was my mentor. Like, I shouldn't have been shouting, but we were very close. I was like, why the hell are you doing this to me? I have to submit my application. My LORs haven't been uploaded. And I have to, you are asking me to revisit this. I was happy with this, but I was really good decision, because in the end, after a month, I reviewed my personal statement, I was like, wow, that made a lot of sense. So the takeaway is iterations, and have smart people look at it, but make it personal, believe in yourself, pour your heart out, and just, you're going to have a banging personal statement, man. If you can just do that.
That's a good point. And I'm glad you mentioned the thing. I'm glad you talked about how getting a review is important, because oftentimes we write something and we think like, oh, it's done. But no, I think this is a really good takeaway point for the audience that's watching, that getting it reviewed by people who are in this process, who have gone through it, is really important, because they have a perspective that other people are not going to have, right? As compared to your mom or dad or brother or sister or whatever, something like that. So Tayyab, thank you so much for that input. We're going to get back to the personal statement in a little bit. Abdullah's back. So Saad and Abdullah, back to you guys.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say that was really inspiring, Tayyab, and I definitely know who I'm getting my PS reviewed by this season. So be ready for that one. Abdullah, are you back with us?
Yeah.
All right. Let's get back into
thank you.
the application
Yeah.
components.
Yes, thank you very much, Tayyib. And I just want to add something to what Tayyib mentioned. It's basically the art of presenting, how you present yourself and sell yourself. When it goes in that direction. Yes, we have a bigger imposter syndrome. He could not be more right when he said that. We achieve a lot of things, but we don't give ourselves credit for them. So there's just a leeway into that. All right. So the very next thing after you mentioned the honorary societies, there's a section for medical school awards. Now, this particular section is all about any distinctions or any sort of scholarships that you got in medical school, or any sort of awards that you won during med school. And this could particularly include distinctions or any positions that you held. If you got first in your first prof, if you were the gold medalist or silver medalist or the bronze medalist, or if you secured an extracurricular achievement during med school, this is where you put it in. If you have honors in a particular subject, if you pass with honors, your CGPA should go in, because CGPA is something that they understand. And as far as my understanding goes,
Dow is a master in that. They present their Dow Medical
Yeah.
School present their transcripts in CGPAs, so that makes it easier for you guys. I actually learned that art from a Dow friend. So thanks, you know,
I think I know that.
thank God I am.
Yeah, I think I know that girlfriend.
Hey, what do you mean? Isn't the MSP made by a medical school?
It is. But what I think Abdullah is talking about
I
is
never saw
about,
mine.
can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we can hear.
we're talking about, for example, so CGPAs, right? So Dow is one
Yep.
college across many in Pakistan that plays on CGPAs, and the way Dow students play it in their honors is that if they have a 3+ GPA, or if they have more than 75 marks in any subject, they're gonna write that as an honors. And this goes across the board. This works.
And that is amazing. That is amazing, because that is what program directors and the selection committee understands. That's the language that they're used to. I mean, I know that in Pakistan, the traditional system is that we have a certain percentage that we present ourselves from. But in the US, it's all about the GPA and how, you know, and what kind of grade point average.
That's a good point. That's a good point. That's a really good point, because I think your point you want to get across to the audience is that Pakistan and the US, it's a very different system, right? So the AMGs and their system, their GPA, that's very, very different, right? So I think the point that the audience should take away is that you need to understand like what you're portraying and how to portray it. So for example, you go to medical school and it's percentage based or whatever it might be. You have to translate that into a way that the PDs and the people that are reviewing your applications, whoever it might be, they understand that, even though it's not the same culture, country, context. So that's a very important point to take away. Yeah. You're saying?
Yeah. And that's where the whole argument of how you present yourself comes in. I mean, you could have scored a gold medal in let's say biochemistry, or you scored a gold medal, you know, in a particular subject, let's say internal medicine. But how about you present that in terms of CGPA so they can understand it? Because they might not understand gold medals, or they might not understand bronze medals, but they will understand, you know, what you've scored in that particular subject, and as far as CGPA is concerned. So that's where medical school awards, you know, that's what you put in your medical school awards section.
Yeah, also one more thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, cutting you off again. Is like people think MSPE, like it's different than awards, it's a document that your school prepares, but people think it's not as important. But if you look at the NRMP data and what PDs ranked as their number one, like their top choices after scores, it was MSPE. So
4.3 out of 5. Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't say for IMGs or not. For IMGs, it's even more important because they don't know what our medical school system is like. So they try to figure it out. They make an honest effort to look at our MSPE. If it's well presented, if it's not well presented, like, I can't read it. So they throw it away. So it's extremely important to
I feel
get
like
your sorry. Yeah.
there was a, if you all recall, last month, I'm not gonna name who, but on Twitter, there was this whole drama about someone posting a screenshot or a picture of someone's MSP, and I believe they were from India, right? So and that was a program director. So it goes to show that program directors are looking at MSPs, right?
Yeah.
Just, tell everyone that. And yeah, Twitter has a lot of drama. Everyone who's watching this, please follow Twitter. You can get to know what's going on in the match cycle from the PD point of view, from the applicant point of view. It's like it's very fun. Sorry, Tayyab, back to you.
Yeah, exactly. And I would defer to Abdullah to continue. Yeah.
All right. So moving on, the next part of the ERAS CV is the most important part. That's where the experiences come in. Man, oh man, I mean, you can spend hours, days, weeks, and months, and it may still not be enough how much time you need to invest on this part of the section. And I think that you will agree with me on this. I think it has become a bit more challenging now that they have limited it to only 10 experiences. You know, you have 10 shots, only 10 shots. I mean, before just to be more clear, before 2023, this was the ERAS CV's experiences section was not put into limits. You can put as many experiences as you want. You know, it could be as many research experiences, as many volunteer experiences, whatever you want to throw in, you can go ahead and do that. But last year, what happened was that they limited it to 10 experiences. And this meant that you have to choose those 10 experiences very smartly. That because these 10 experiences are going to speak about you, what you are and what you've done over the course of your medical career and post-grad as well. So the experiences section is divided into several categories. The experiences section can be an education or training platform experience. For example, if you've done any post-grad training or any course that was clinically oriented, that goes in that clinical experience section. And education and training section is also used to describe any U.S. clinical experience that you've done during your med school as well. If there's a clinical elective rotation that you've done. There was a very subtle confusion last year of if someone should include their U.S. clinical experience as a work experience or as an education/training experience. This is a very gray area, but I would like to be more cautious when I talk about this. Someone, a mentor who was very dear to me, he told me that the way that the US PDs and the US selection committees perceive work experience is something, it has to be, any work experience has to be paid.
Yep.
If you're not paid for it, if you're not compensated financially for it, it's not work. It can come into training, it can come into education, it can come into volunteer, but it cannot come into work. And if you choose to, knowing this, if you choose to go ahead and pursue any, include any US clinical experience, which 99% of the IMGs will have done it unpaid, if they include that in the work experience category, it might come off as something you don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly. So
am I making sense over here?
Yeah, you're making a lot of sense. And I just want to build on that and tell you that that's just one caveat, right?
Yeah.
So there's so many technicalities that you need to be careful of when you're filling out these experiences. Do you call it observership? Do you call it externship? Do you call it hands-on? Do you call it hands-off? That's why, again, mentorship is extremely important, right? And that's why what you guys doing here is extremely important too, because when you're rushed and you're just 15 days to submitting it, that's when mistake starts happening. And that's why people who with stellar scores, good publications, like, why aren't we not getting interviews? And that's where the fault is. Like, because it's a professional CV. You're going to a program and then you're telling them, I am good enough for you to train me for 3 years and I'm going to blow your socks off, right? And when you make spelling mistakes, when you make capitalization mistakes, when you not categorize stuff, that's a big turnoff, right? And they're like, oh man, this guy doesn't even know what he's talking about, right? How do I trust what he's saying? Also, we have a stigma as IMGs, like we cannot communicate properly or we cannot fit into their system. So that basically builds on that bias, right? So that's why this if it's a 3-hour podcast or a discussion, it will still not be enough to discuss everything that you need to be careful on for ERAS.
Absolutely.
But this is an introduction, right? And what you can do is find someone who has filled out the ERAS CV before, because they would know what they're talking about, right? And who has matched, right? And they would help you. Yeah. You would send your ERAS CV, they would check it, they would give you feedback, then you send it back. So again, the iterative process, that's what you need to follow, right?
Okay, all right. So I feel like you guys mentioned, there are so many caveats involved in the experiences section that we might probably need a separate episode just on this specific section. Right? So let's not get too much into that, but I want both of you to briefly answer one thing. If there are 10 experiences, how should an applicant categorize their experiences? What 10 they should have? And which ones you believe were the most important for you to get a match as individuals? See, if you could answer these two questions. Right, Abdullah, you go first, and then Tayyab, you follow. All right, Abdullah, go ahead.
Sure. So, at answering the first part of the question, how should you choose to? I mean, what kind of categories should you include? My opinion is that you should have a mixture of everything. You should be shown as an all-rounded applicant who has done something, a bit of everything. You're a jack of all trades, right? I mean, there could be an argument, but you're a master of none. But the point is, that if you're able,
jack of all trades, master of none, but still better than master of one. That's a complete saying. So, guys,
exactly,
be a jack of all trades.
Exactly. So I mean, if you're able to include from your life experiences, if you're able to include your US clinical experience as far as education and training is concerned, if you're able to include volunteer experiences, if you have volunteered for an educational cause or for a fundraising cause, raising camps or if you've done enough work as far as blood work is concerned, if you've been on a team where you're collecting blood for people who cannot afford in an emergency situation, any volunteer experience that comes in that category, and any research experience, if you've done a research experience, if you've collected some data, if you've been a part of a research team, but not yet published it, that experience is still valid. What you've done over the course of that experience, if you've collected data, if you have done statistical analysis, whatever that you've done in that research course or research mentorship that you were a part of, include that in research experience. And one of the most important things that I want to talk about is that extracurricular component of the experiences as well. If you love music, if you love creating music, if you love being a sports person, if you've been part of a team, include that. I mean, have that one section out of those 10, 9 of them should be professional, 9 be research, education, work, whatever it is, volunteer. One experience, at least one should be extracurricular, because that is something that is going to come up in the interview. That is what they're going to talk about. The interview process is a lot more about what they want to know about you as a person, other than being a medical professional. If they want to know if you're a person who's easy to work with, who's enjoyable to work with, and the small section of extra, that's perfect. The second part of the question of Saad, I'm just going to take two more minutes, is what do I think made me stand out? I think in those 10 experiences, I did a lot of volunteer work, and I made sure to include at least 3 volunteer experiences that I had done over the course of my A levels and then during med school as well. And yes, I was very happy to include my MedAngle experience as well. Thank you to Azib and Saad.
I hear that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Of course.
I feel like Abdullah is start again. So, fun fact for everyone, while Abdullah gets back, every person who has ever included MedAngle in their experiences on their match applications has matched. Just a general fun fact.
That's the secret. Wrap up, guys. Wrap up. That's the secret sauce. Yes. Why are we wasting everyone's time? Like, just put MedAngle into it.
Well, it is something to get in. It is something.
All right. Abdullah is still lagging a bit, so while
he's still lagging out.
Wait for him to figure that out. Tayyab, how about you go ahead and answer?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Abdullah says. The one thing that I would add, first of all, again, you need to 1 minute or 2 minutes that the PD has. So this ERAS experience section should also be symbiotic with other sections. Like, for example, memberships, neurology, all these memberships, and then experiences, USCEs in neurology, right? For example, medals in sports. If I mention that, then I need to do my hobby section and news for people who don't know that there's going to be a separate hobby section in ERAS this time, right? They're going to give you a separate section, right? So last time we used one experience and labeled it hobby, and it was very messy. So they took the feedback and they made this new section, right? Again, it should be a reflection of the whole CV. So it's basically, it's art, right? So your whole CV should have like 2 or 3 themes that reflect everywhere. Everywhere you look, this is the thing that's coming across, right? And experiences are the same. First comes like US clinical experience, any other work experience you had before, like house job, right? And then volunteer experiences, extracurriculars, anything you can add. And two things that I'm very going to stress a lot about, right? Believing in yourself and like just thinking, okay, this is the template I need to follow, and overdoing it. This is a very fine line, my friend. Like, you can easily overdo stuff, right? You can easily embellish stuff. Keep it simple, okay? And other than that, like without like that's why you need someone to go over it again, because then if you've overdone something, if, for example, in impact experience, you've written something like a soap opera or novel in which like you want to make the other person cry, that's not the aim of it, right? It's about what you take away from that impactful experience, right? So there are so many minutiae that you need to be careful of in the end, right? Yeah. So extracurriculars, volunteer, and
one thing I want to talk about, I think it's really important that we want to hit home, because you talked about biases and kind of like stigmas that we have, or kind of it's like things like that. And I think that obviously everyone's experience is different globally, but the idea of embellishing things and the idea of being sincere and honest and truthful, I think that's very, very important. Absolutely. I think too often, I think for reasons that not that these reasons are correct, but their motivations could have understood why. It doesn't make it, obviously it's not ethical, so it's not right still. The truth is the truth. The truth is all we have at the end of the day, right? So I think that's a very good point about don't embellish things, don't make things up, and don't overstate things that aren't true just to look good or stand out. That's very wrong. I think it's very ethical.
Yeah, so the person reading your CV, he's smarter than you, man, to be honest. He's read 3, if he has 5,000 applications, he reads 1,000 every season, right? So he will pick it up. So as soon as, be true, stick to the truth, and you don't need to fill out the 10 experiences. I only filled out 8. I didn't have to, right? So there's no requirement to fill out 10, right? And
absolutely.
reason I'm
if
sitting
someone
here
goes
today.
over the board,
Yeah.
if someone goes over the board and starts showing off in their ERAS CV, 9 out of 10 times it's gonna come you and bite in the back, because if you're called for an interview, using that CV, I mean, you gotta be careful, man, because you gotta back it up whatever you said. And if
Yep.
you're not able to, portray it or enunciate whatever that you've done in the right manner, they're gonna know.
Yep.
Like you said,
One piece of
they,
Even
advice.
with the research.
I agree
Yeah, even
100%. One piece of advice I give,
Yeah.
I think that all of us can take this away. I think it's a lesson to be learned, or it's something if you don't know already, it's common sense. But even for us, like when we hire at MedAngle, when I'm going through interviews or applications for MedAngle, it's liberty. Like you stated on your resume or your application that you did X, Y, and Z. You have the right as PDs or APDs, or if we're if hiring at MedAngle, whatever you put down, even if it's a small bullet point, we can ask you about that. And if we feel that you're not being honest, or we find out you're not being honest, well, this person has no credibility. It's shot, like it's lost, right? You're done in a sense. So a good takeaway. Don't embellish.
Yeah. Let me just add to that with an example, which actually like I said, they would know and they would grill you about it even after you matched. Like if you're not doing well in the program, they look at your CV and look for things that maybe you lied upon on your CV, and then they can fire you for it, man. It's that serious, right? And also I had an interview in which it was a very comprehensive interview in which I had 4 interviews in which 30 minutes each, and 2 of those interviews were just they opened my CV and asked me everything about it. And it was like the hard 1 hour of I was sweating through everything. I was like, oh my God, what's happening?
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's
the right to, right? I mean,
do
you're
a
right.
podcast by interviews because they're so unpredictable and there's so much it's a whole other ball game doing well in them.
But
And
I think the
again,
moral
you need
story
to set
here.
a solid foundation of truth to do well in them. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I tell people in general, it's a good life thing. Like the truth is all we have. So even if you get caught lying on one bullet point, you could get fired for that. You could face consequences for that. So don't lie. Just be truthful. It's easier than facing the consequences, because let's say I think that there's a story that I heard about. There was an applicant that I knew about who did lie on their CV, and they made stuff up, and they did get matched, right? And after that, they had to cover up lie after lie after lie. And guess what? They got caught eventually. You cannot lie that much, and eventually you'll be caught, right? So
If you
moral
haven't-
story.
Yeah, if
Don't
you haven't
exaggerate.
still when they're grilling you, you're sweating. You're like, what? Look, they ask you, for example, they asked me, okay, you wrote this paper about rescue stenting. Okay, so I had this opportunity of opening this paper. So this Duan study, what do you? Okay, so this does not go with your does this include this? Is this the cause of heterogeneity in your study? And I was like, he actually read my paper, and I was like, what the hell is going on here? And then, of course, I've done the work. So I was explained, okay, this is what it was, and we had to include it because we have our criteria for LVO definition was different. Without getting the details for that, but if you lie, then you must be the best liar, acting degree or something like that.
As for that you mentioned, I mean, as far as the experiences section is concerned, we can go on and on about it. That's how important it is. I mean, we will have to hold a special session just for the experiences section. The next part is the research, the publications that you've had, and I liked how they made the publication section this year. It wasn't my understanding was that if someone has a publication that it's in PubMed and you have a URL for it, you have a source code for it, for them to trace.
Okay, yeah. How about Tayyab? How about you go ahead? So we have the publications section left, languages, hobbies, certifications, and geographical preference, which is something that I believe was new to this year cycle.
Yeah.
So we need to talk about that.
I think the most important things that focus are the publication and geographic preferences.
Yeah.
Everything else is not that significant in the broader sense. Publications, I would like to say something that like he said, there are different sections. It does not have to be PubMed indexed. It still doesn't count. It still does count. Okay. But one thing I would tell people because people approach you all the time, how did you publish? Please teach us, please teach us, please teach us. Key to publication is determination, you grit, right? If you want to learn it, you will. You should connect with people who want to do research, find a way. I started with meta-analysis. You can, if you don't have time, you can publish letters to the editor, you can go send abstracts to conferences. And people don't understand why publications are important, right? Think about this. You're the program director, there's an incoming resident. ACGME requires residents to present one scholarly activity every year, okay, at least. So they know that the resident has to do research. If you have 0 publication, then it's like, oh, we have to teach him. That's a negative against you. If you have 2 to 3 publications, they know you know how to do research. Now you're at a level playing field. There's no faida, no nuksan. Okay. But if you have 10, 12 high impact publications, right, then they know, then their mouth starts watering, because now if it's a university program, especially, they will think, okay, he'll come here, he'll publish, and then we'll apply for funds for because of that, and our accreditation and rating is going to go up. So this is the spectrum of where you need to start thinking about publications, right? People just think, okay, how many publications are required? Why, like,
Yeah.
they ask, like,
I
so these,
hate that. I
Yeah.
hate that.
So yeah, please, Abdullah, if you want to continue that thought.
Go ahead. You were explaining it really well.
I feel okay. So let's say, speed through this a bit, right? So how about just comment on, so like you mentioned, Tayyab and also Abdullah, that not every research experience has to be a publication. So let's explain that. What is a research experience that you put down in the publication section? And for example, if I have 7 publications, that doesn't mean I have 7 experiences. I might have 15. How does that work exactly? Just comment on that a bit for the audience.
Yeah, so like you said, in the experiences section, for example, I worked at with my mentor, who's an AP at a university in Georgia, right? So I worked with him for a year and a half, and I got like 6 or 7 publications out of it, right? And in my experiences section, I just mentioned that this was my remote research experience, okay? And in there I mentioned the skills I learned, right? For example, I learned about Stata R, using RevMan, doing meta-analysis, using the CDC Wonder database to do stuff, right? Or the Stratus database to do stroke research. So I mentioned that, right? I was selling that in that portion. And I briefly mentioned we got 7 publications and this many poster presentations out of it. In my section of publications, I mentioned all the publications which were published according to, they give you sections. That's also our art of how to fill that. And then projects we were still working on, then I mentioned those, right? And there's now something important. If you have 0 publication and you write 7 publications that you're working on, right? No one's going to believe you. It's like, seriously, you don't have 1 publication and you're working on 7 publications, right? But if you have a history, if you can able to sell it, like I had 6 or 7 publications that I'd done already, and then I mentioned other publications that I was currently working on, and that was 2 plus 2. That made sense, because okay, this was the previous project, that project should come after this project, so this is how this is working, right? So that's how you can
Exactly
tell people that you have more publications than you already have, and now all of them are published already, right? So the projects we were working on, now they're published, right? So again,
that's what I was
mention.
I'm sorry to continue over there. What I loved in that publication section, with there's a section called other than published, where you can put in the work that you're currently working on. It's, I mean, maybe you've submitted it, but it's not in the press yet, or not online yet. It's not in the PubMed index yet, but it's still there. I mean, you've submitted it, so you can add that over there, and that adds a lot of flexibility to what you can do in that section.
Yeah. Also, I would encourage everyone to learn the basics, do it the right way. But if you really need to, you can write letters to the editor, submit to conferences, and get your abstract published. If your work is not in the supreme condition that it needs for a published to be in a journal, just submit it to a conference. Go to that conference. That's a great place to network, right? A lot of people I met at conferences, like last year I attended at SWIN. I attended the International Stroke Conference by the American Heart Association. That's, I think, a month ago. And I met so many fantastic people there. And for me, neurology is a small field. So I was actually making the steps in the right direction for my fellowship. Like they were asking, okay, you're such a good candidate. Oh, when you're thinking about fellowship, you can talk to us or think about this, right? So this is how networking happens. It doesn't happen on your couch. You need to actually do research, because research is the best way to network. People often think, okay, we need to do USCs to network, but research is an amazing way to network with people.
Good point. It's a good point.
All right, so let's, we've touched about publications a bit. Let's talk about geographical preferences, which I believe is the first time in the last cycle that something like geographical preferences came into play on the application, right? So, Tayyab, how about you start off, right? How did that factor into your overall application, into your overall interview season, and into your matching?
Yeah, so I think it was we were the second batch that were using geographical preference. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But geographical preferences, oh man, the jury is still out. If you ask me if I have the definitive answer for everyone, I don't. And that's why I tell everyone, like a junior of mine, unfortunately, like he did not match. And when he was talking to me, he was giving me anecdotal evidence. And I was like, did you look at the NRMP data? So data is your friend. It never lies, right? So if you don't listen to me, don't listen to Abdullah, right? do your own research, right? See what percentage of people who chose geographical preferences got interviews from that places. For me personally, I can like add one drop in that sea of data by saying that although I got 2/3 of my interview from my geographical preferences, the interviews that was some really, the spectacular interviews that I was really looking forward to, they were out of my geographical preferences, right? I know friends who have all their interviews from their geographical preferences, right? So how do you be now? There are two important thing is like, again, this is a big topic, but people choose the IMG friendly regions, which is Middle Atlantic, which includes New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. Then there's the Florida region, Florida, Georgia, that South Carolina, North Carolina region, and then there's the Texas region, Texas, Louisiana, right? So these are the people think. But when I was applying, I was thinking, okay, if I'm choosing this, then everyone else is choosing this. So what's the point? So I actually, what I did was I chose Middle Atlantic, Florida region, because those programs I had ties to, like I already rotated at some of those places, and Illinois region, Illinois, I don't know what's the specific name of the region, Midwest or
Midwest Central.
Yeah, so I chose that region, and lo and behold, I got so many interviews from that region, because I think I figured it out that yeah, like everyone's don't follow the herd, be smart about it, right? And again, a lot of good interviews. Like I got an interview from University of Texas San Antonio, right, which I was really looking forward to, and that interview I didn't have a geographic preference. So take what you can from this, because it's still new, but we can like later talk about signaling, and I can share my thoughts about that. But that's what I have about geographic preferences.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Abdullah, what do you have to say about geographical preferences?
It's a game. I think, I mean, like Tayyab said, from my perspective, you don't have to listen to me. I think it's a game changer when it comes to the ERAS application.
Okay.
If I were to talk about my experience, 90% of my interviews from and I mean, those geographical preferences came into handy because I mean, like, my grandparents lived in Illinois, so I picked that section. And if you can show some sort of familial connection, if that's possible for you, please go ahead and play that card. So yeah, and from a statistical point of view, when you residency, when you look at the data, you find out that most of these programs are interviewing applicants who have picked their program in that geographical preference. I mean, the program lies in their geographical preference. Residency Explorer manifests that in their graph, and also signaling also plays a similar role.
All right, perfect. Okay, so I believe we've touched upon pretty much every aspect of the application by now, right? So let's do this. We're not going to talk about signaling today or about programs. We're probably going to have a separate session or episode for that, say generally for the audience here. Don't worry, we're going to be touching about those things, just not today, right? Today we've given you a lot to ponder about and a lot to work on. You know what you need to do in terms of your application, in terms of your certification, in terms of your publications, right? There's already a lot that you need to work on, right? So just start on that for now. But just to break things off, let's briefly lay down a timeline of things of what we're looking at for the next entire year, right? So Tayyab, let's break the timeline down, right? Starting from when the match season starts up until you match. Yeah, could you do that for us?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because we're signing off, so I would like wish like everyone the best of luck and say that you can do this, man. Like last year, I was thinking I cannot do this. There's such like I thought I'm applying so late, I'm not gonna get a single interview, right? So first of all, believe in yourself. That's a prerequisite, right? And then whatever we've talked about, you need to focus on those things, all right? And then when you look at the timeline for the match, I think you're gonna get the token in May or June. That doesn't matter when you get the token. The deadline to submit your application by ERAS is September 27, 23, 27, changes every year, right? One important thing, keep in mind that it takes a week for your LORs to upload, right? At max, okay? And those are business days, like Monday to Friday. So don't make the same mistake I did. Be even more proactive, okay? Get things uploaded on time, get certified on time, because I've seen people submitting their applications late and not matching as a result of it, just because they did not have their things ready in time, right? By September 27, when you submit that button, then you're like, it's just a weight off your shoulders.
Yeah.
You relax for a couple of days, and then the interviews calls start coming in. For IMGs, they usually take some month for things to heat up. I was lucky in a sense that the next day my first interview came, so I was like, what?
Wow.
So
Wow. Nice.
so I was like, what? Maybe they filtered me into the wrong AMG basket, like something. So I was like, maybe it's a fluke. I wanted to text back, give a number who this like, who like really wanted to interview me, really. So then interviews
This is
is
the
like
imposter syndrome showing, guys. Just so we're aware that this is the imposter syndrome
exactly.
of Pakistan is showing, guys.
For the next 3-4 months, you spend interviews, right? Then then you're thinking about, oh my God, how do I prepare for next you think, oh my God, how do I prepare for it? And that's a whole different talk, and we can have that. Your interviews continue till January, right? By then, most people also give step 3 if they haven't already, right? And then once you wrap up the interviews, into the interview season, you sent in October or November, you send letters of interest. Letters of interest are like you telling the program, I'm interested in you, right? Like the name suggests. After January, you send letters of intent, right? 1, maximum 2 programs, right? I just sent it to my top choice, and they took me. Okay. I just said, and you write, then first is letter of interest, I'm interested in you, and the letter of intent is, will you marry me? Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah. So it's like you telling them that, oh my God, you're in love at first sight. I have so much fun coming here, and I just want to please take me for some reason.
It's just a desi
Arranged marriage, yeah.
Help you get married. It's just that you're just getting a program.
Yep. And then your 28th February is your deadline to submit your rank order list. Obviously, again, before January, I think you have to buy the token for the NRMP, which is the algorithm, right? We talked about earlier. And then 28th February was the deadline this year for the rank order deadline. And then 11th March was match day. And 15th March, you got to know where you matched. That's pretty much it. That's the match cycle.
All right, perfect. And for those of you who are confused in the audience right now, letter of interest is essentially sent to get an interview from the programs that you have applied to. And the rank order list is when you rank the programs where you have interviewed. And essentially, a program makes a rank order list, and an applicant makes a rank order list as well. And then the NRMP algorithm, like Abdullah said, which is not a single beauty at all, it gets to work and it tries to decide, okay, so which 2 things are connecting here, right? So the rank order list is essentially that. And the letter of intent, like Tayyab very beautifully mentioned, is a marriage proposal. You're telling the program that I am ranking you as my first choice. Please rank me as your first choice too, right? So that's the rank order list, right? Just a brief overview.
I'm just gonna get a bit more. I'll try to be a little bit more funny, but it's a back and forth flirting process that goes on over the course of these 6 months. And even I used to tell my dad, when you get called for an interview, I may not like that program where I got an interview from, but I have to show it to them that you're the only one, and I love you. I have to make them rank me high.
I feel like there's a
they do the same thing. It's not like, yeah, sorry for cutting you off, but this is like such a funny thing because they do the same thing. They'll give you a presentation or program for residents, diversity, this catchment area. We'll give you meals, we'll give you food, free parking, and then you're sitting there like, acha, theek hai, dekhiye, like. So it's you're quoting them, they're quoting you. It's an amazing time.
It's called a match. It's inspired from Tinder and Bumble. Matching. All right, Abdullah, sorry.
On a very serious note, it works. It really works. I mean, if you get invited for an interview, if you've actually researched about that program, you may not like the program, but you know enough about the program, the location, and they ask you why this program. That's a very important question that they ask. They want to know how interested you are, and if you research enough about them and you're able to code those things in the interview smartly enough and melt them in the conversation, they remember that. And that's something that that impresses them. I mean, I can remember right now during one of my interviews, there was a veteran professor who interviewed me, and luckily enough, he was the one who I searched the most about before the interview. They had an award named after him.
Wow!
And I mentioned that in the interview, and that guy couldn't speak for like a few seconds after that. He's like, "How do you know that? I mean, how did you figure that out?" It's you have to be a professional stalker to make this.
You should have said Bella Ciao, Pakistani hackers.
Okay,
So,
Joe Goldberg
yeah.
should be our inspiration, guys. Say Joe Goldberg. Channel your inner Joe Goldberg to get these interviews and then impress the hell out of them. All right. Okay, this has been really, really fun. So yeah, Abdullah, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of It's a Match by MedAngle. And yes, for the audience, we will be coming out with many, many more episodes. Not just in this month, not just in these next few months, but throughout this entire season, right? To help you ace match 2025. So to keep up to date, please follow us on our social media such as Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. So thread भी आ गया आजकल. We have X/Twitter, even though पाकिस्तान में काम नहीं कर रहा है वो, right? But if you're using VPN, you can get that. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date with everything. It's a Match by MedAngle. Thank you so much. And Khuda Hafiz.